Qaanitah, let's have that discussion now. And it perhaps helps to start here, and that is that people have this expectation that President Ramaphosa may not get a good reception at the White House. Decorum and courtesy is what heads of state accord each other, as reminded by the president's spokesperson this week. Can we expect that on Wednesday?
So there's two things here, Koli. The first is what the Ramaphosa administration is preparing to receive and how they have prepared to present the case to US President Donald Trump. So let's start with the second bit. The second bit is President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his engagements, in all of the years that he has been president and before, has always maintained the sort of deal-maker stance, that he does not go, venture into anything that's not scripted, he does not, entertain a situation where there could be an inflammation of tension. And so from Ramaphosa's side, they believe that they are ready for this engagement. What do they go prepared with? They go prepared with, firstly, a conversation that's, or input that says, this is South Africa's sovereignty, these laws are constitutional, and that South Africa cannot give up a constitutionally safeguarded transformation program. Yeah. The second thing is that what the Ramaphosa administration is hoping to hone on is Ramaphosa's role in international relations. So whether it is the Ukraine situation, whether it is South Africa's stance on the Palestinian issue. And the third, and I suppose most important, but that's how South Africa wants to position itself, is when it comes to deal making. And that's why that package, whatever it looks like, presented or prepared by Minister Park Stow, is absolutely important to say whether they're going to lead with that, to say, here's opportunity for the US. Here's an opportunity for you to win. Here's an opportunity for American companies to win in South Africa and for South African companies to win in the US. And so that is how Ramaphosa goes prepared. Now, when it comes to Trump, we understand and we've seen since the beginning of his second term, his efforts to not want to change his mind. And more importantly, to sort of keep this big man a persona in meetings with heads of state. And so that is going to be the tricky part for the Ramaphosa team. Ramaphosa, and he's obviously going with 4 ministers and advisors, how to navigate.
The 49 Afrikaners, it already sets the stage for what may confront President Ramaphosa. His team, before leaving for the United States, they are at pains to say that is not a priority for them. This has been explained on the back of the Afrikaners leaving. Interesting that President Ramaphosa takes with him the agriculture minister. Do you foresee a situation where John Steenhuisen will probably be seated there and explain at length why, as he put it this week, these 49 Afrikaners took a bad deal or made a bad decision?
I don't think that the Ramaphosa administration is interested in going, in a back and forth with Trump. He has repeatedly said that there's a white genocide and that there's racial persecution that's happening in South Africa. So I do think that where someone like John Steenhuisen is important is in the meetings that are beyond the White House meetings. Those are the meetings with business leaders. Those are the meetings with significant representatives of Congress, for example. And so I think that definitely Ramaphosa is going to rely on someone like John Steenhuisen to bolster South Africa's case that there's no such thing as the persecution of white people in South Africa. But like you said, that the South African government wants to kind of move on from that now, to say we've already said our bit on that, and now it's about how does South Africa get a better deal. And so more importantly for John Steenhuisen is safeguarding South African businesses and the deals between South African businesses and the US.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Qaanitah, but it may come across as though it is trivial, but we are dealing with someone who is viewed as a racist. We're dealing with the head of state that's seen as a racist. Might the message land better from a white agriculture minister to explain that there is no genocide in South Africa, there is no land grabs that is going on where Afrikaners are being dispossessed of their land? Might that perhaps be the trick? Or are we trivializing issues here?
No, I think it definitely will help. I mean, besides the fact that John Steenhuisen leads such an important ministry that is directly responsible for these so-called farmers that have been, so-called massacred in South Africa. But more than that, he's also the leader of the second largest party, opposition party. And so this effort to put forward a united front to say, look at us, black and white in South Africa, we work well together. We have this multi-party coalition government. Look, this was my opposition. He's now serving as a minister in my administration. So definitely a game of perception and definitely an effort to almost lean in to this, what you say is, public racism from the Trump administration.
Yeah. Let's then discuss, or do we even know what this package looks like? Because there has been talk of a package that will be offered to the current United States administration. We are dealing, after all, with a man that has been now widely seen as a transactional president. Do we know what it is that South Africa can offer to a point where they are not extorted, by the way, where Ramaphosa is not forced to agree to things that he may not even be able to deliver on?
So the details of the deal has not been revealed just yet, and it was Kumbutsa Ntshavheni, the minister in the presidency, who said, let's wait for the presentation to the Trump administration for it to be made public. But what we do know is that for the last 2 months or so, that's what Ramaphosa had tasked Park Stow to come up with, as they'd seen that AGOA had been completely and utterly jeopardized. And so it was important now to understand the new world that South Africa finds itself, and this is a world which is called a mini-polar world, not a multipolar world, where the Trump administration prefers one-on-one relationships between countries based on what he can sort of win from those relationships. You'd see how the tariff negotiations, for example, with China got affected. And so it's definitely an effort or a package deal that says, how do we safeguard our citrus industry, for example, and that business that takes place there. And Ramaphosa has long maintained that the trade relationship between the US and South Africa is a win-win situation, and it's not only one-sided. And I do think that the South African delegation going there this week is going to make that its foremost message to say that you are, and you can win as much as we can benefit. And for that, I think that they're going to position those deals as a benefit for the US, and South Africa hopefully will be able to restore these diplomatic relations by appeasing to Trump in that way.
So let's close it on this note, because it is President Ramaphosa himself who invokes the name of the founding president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, saying that he was taught at the feet of Nelson Mandela. Mondli Makhanya reminds us today that this White House meeting possibly is akin to the first official engagement between President Mandela and President Bill Clinton back in October of 1994. But he hastens to say that was a different era, a time of mutual respect. And that's the point I want to hammer on. Some are saying perhaps Ramaphosa is wasting his time here talking to someone who's already made up his mind about what is going on in South Africa. Do we think that indeed this is worth the effort? on the part of Ramaphosa, of course.
Well, the other option is just an escalation of the tensions. And so Mondli Makhanye is exceptionally right when he says that we're not in the same world. Ramaphosa goes to the White House where all rules of diplomacy are no longer on the table, and that he could be in for anything. Ask several of the presidents that have sought an audience with US President Donald Trump, from the King of Jordan to President Zelensky to the Prime Minister of Canada. And so the reality of it is that there is no predictability of how this can unfold, particularly because we're in unprecedented waters. And so does Ramaphosa not try, or because they don't know, how he would be received? I think he has to do everything in his power. And this meeting, his administration says, is an effort for him to take charge of the relationship, to try to put South Africa's best foot forward. And, it's almost the last thing he can do to make things better.
Qaanitah Hunter, thank you very much, setting the tone for the meeting that is about to take place on Wednesday. And I'm sure we're going to have many more of these conversations in the lead up to that.